Todos Medical was originally formed to develop cancer and Alzheimer's tests. Now the company is adapted to become a one-stop shop for COVID-19 testing and response. Their goal is to help save lives through early detection while being minimally invasive to the patient. In December of 2020, they released a supplement targeting coronaviruses called Tolavid and a software system for doctors to evaluate a patient's immune system before being vaccinated. Here now to share more is the CEO of Todos Medical Ltd, Gerald Commissiong. And Gerald, welcome here to Open.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And listen, as we talk about coronavirus, obviously a lot of us are still in that phase of trying to navigate and get through it. We're glad that there's a vaccine out there, but you've also are working with a supplement. So for those who don't know, give us a little bit about Tolavid.
Sure. So Tolavid is developed from a natural plant. The plant has been used for a long time in traditional Chinese medicine. What it has is a very specific ingredient extract inside of it that targets something called the 3CL protease. If you think about how viruses work, they have to multiply, and then they have to divide, and then they have to leave the cells that they infect to go and infect other cells, other hosts. So what this 3CL protease does is it's effectively the food that the viruses need to continue to replicate and to divide and go out and infect other cells. So this supplement that we have targets that 3CL protease and inhibits its activity, effectively seeking to cut coronaviruses off at the knees so they cannot replicate as readily as they otherwise would, giving the body's immune system more time to address and overcome the coronaviruses.
Where are we with the supplement now? And talk to us about some of the responses you've gotten since bringing the supplement forward.
Sure. So the supplement was initially launched in Israel. So they've treated thousands of patients in Israel in basically open label studies. We have recently started a double-blind placebo-controlled clinical trial of extra strength Tolavid in hospitalized patients in Israel. Here in the US, we have brought Tolavid to market through our partners at the Alchemist Kitchen. And we are in the middle of really finishing out the marketing materials, getting some additional data, especially from that placebo-controlled trial, and producing more quantity before we start to mass market it.
Yeah. And so as with the mass marketing, what are you looking at, what kind of timeline are we looking at in terms before we can really see it with a full rollout?
We're thinking, towards the end of the first quarter would be our major marketing push. We see, a lot of opportunity for Tolavid for people obviously who are not priority for vaccinations, as well as people who are undergoing the vaccination process and starting to get out into the universe. We think that this could give an extra layer of protection, while their immunity is building up from the vaccine.
And I know, so the other work that you continue to do is with regards to software. There's a software that's now becoming available for doctors to evaluate a patient's immune system before being vaccinated. Give us a little background into that.
Sure. So, we've been talking about antibody tests for COVID-19 for, upwards of a year. There was a lot of activity around it, and then, kind of went away. And now with the vaccine, there's a lot of interest coming back. Basically, the problem with a lot of the tests that are out there is they're only looking for one thing or two things that are very specific. They're not looking at a broader score. So just to put into context, typically you would look at, 3 different antibodies, and then the antibodies would work on different targets. We've been hearing about the spike protein, because there are a lot of variants in the spike protein. And so you may produce an antibody to the spike protein, but if there's a variant that causes that antibody not to work, and you don't have antibodies for other proteins related to the coronavirus, you could be at risk. So what this test does is it looks for, the different antibodies, but on multiple antigens. It looks at the spike protein, it looks at the N protein and the RBD protein. And so even if you don't have protection against the spike, if you have protection against other proteins related to that coronavirus, you may in fact still be immune. At a profile rather than just one or two data points is really what's important as we think about the path to immunity for patients.
How have doctors received your software?
It's very well received. In fact, we've got a celebrity endorsement from our partners at Aditext by Dr. Drew, who he himself took an antibody test in the fourth quarter of last year. In the middle of the fourth quarter, it showed he had antibodies, so he thought he had immunity. He did the Aditext score. We basically told him, you don't have immunity. And a few weeks later, he ended up getting COVID and then followed his journey through getting COVID and then after recovery and really seeing those antibody levels go up across the board. So, that was a real world example where some of the data out there with existing antibody tests gave someone a false sense of hope, whereas we gave him something that was much more comprehensive. And then, you can always change your choices based upon that information.
And with the software, how readily available is it now?
So it was launched on February 1st. It is available. Doctors are able to prescribe it. And we are taking it so that, the rollout is relatively slow on the marketing standpoint, but in terms of its availability, it is, now available. And so we are in the middle of ramping up our marketing efforts now that it's on the market.
Wow. Well, certainly why don't you come back and give us an update. Now, for people who want more information or get connected to the work that you're doing, how do they go about doing that?
So you can visit the company's website, Todos, COVID19.com. That's TODOS, COVID19.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at todosmedical.com or on our Facebook page, Todos Medical.
Well, certainly want to thank you for being with us here on Open, and it's been great having you. Continue to let us know more as the work continues.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
We encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We got more show. Open continues right after this.